Welcome to Shows What You Know. TV shows are our game. Shows What You Know is our name.
It is indeed. And more specifically, your name is Jim Scampoli.
That's correct. My name is Jim Scampoli. Your name is Jacob Burrows.
So we're nailing it so far. And we're here to talk about a television show called Stranger Things. I'm sorry if I sound love-struck, but before we move on, let me just ask you, because we haven't talked about this show since it was not out, so are you also love-struck?
Actually, yes, my first note here is, I made this note the first few minutes into the show, was this show already got me. But then I put nostalgia ?
Dude, that's exactly what I didn't use that phrasing, but I did 5 minutes in. That's what I wrote. Those are my words as well. And then nostalgia, like 4 question marks, is a trick. But yes.
Yeah, you get that. I don't know if that's just our modern way of thinking, but we just think that we're being tricked or fooled somehow.
Because we enjoy it. It's pretty cynical, but there you go. To be super clear here at the top, because this is Netflix, and when it comes to spoilers, we gotta be super clear, because dangerous waters, since they release it all at once, which kind of, I feel, sometimes kills the internet buzz and build part of it.
I agree.
Because since I don't usually speed through a show, it means like, well, I guess I'm not going on the House of Cards subreddit for a month, and every time I see Frank Underwood, I'm throwing my laptop across the room because it'll just pop up and there'll be a headline like, Frank Underwood does the thing, and I'm like,
Yeah, they're really fast and loose with these guys. I mean, I understand discussing spoilers, but with some of these headlines on, especially a Netflix show where they drop everything at once, it's 2 days later, and the finale is in a headline of an article.
Mm-hmm. So to be super clear, right now we're in a soft and safe space, no spoilers at all. And then at the during the later half of this episode, we'll make it super clear that we're going into spoilers, and then we'll discuss the details on episode 1 to 4, while still dropping 0 spoilers for the rest of the season. So this whole episode is good for if you've only seen the first 4.
Absolutely. I couldn't have said it better myself.
Yeah, and then we'll have a separate episode, which will drop almost Netflix style, not immediately, but almost immediately as this first one. And then we'll have no spoiler-free section at all. We'll just, no holds barred. We'll talk about the whole season with spoilers. You listen to that after you've completed the show. Just wanted to get that out of the way, and that's that.
We have very strict rules here at Shows What You Know, so we like to give you the rules at the top of the show.
Yeah, just to present how fun and entertaining we are, we talk about rules immediately. And those are the rules. So if you've listened to Shows What You Know without watching the shows, I first off want to urge you to watch this show, because I think it's fantastic. And our mouths are not worthy to ruin it with spoilers. So just take care.
If you only just want to hear if we love the show or not, I mean...
Spoiler alert.
Yeah.
We do.
Please don't just leave. Eventually listen to the rest of the episode, but yes, we love the show. And a little backstory, kind of part of why this show that we're doing here, Shows What You Know. I was sitting around and I knew that this show, I was already looking forward to Stranger Things coming up on Netflix in a few weeks. And I figured, what a perfect show to do a television podcast. Yeah. Except you never know if the show's going to actually deliver. You know, you could see the trailers, you can see the cast and hear about it, but you never know if it's going to actually deliver. So we were like, you know what? Maybe let's not keep it just Stranger Things, just in case, to save us. Yeah, let's keep it just shows in general.
But at this point, I feel like we can just switch back. I can just talk about Stranger Things forever. I'm fine with that.
We'll be one of those shows where we just keep rewatching it. And here's episode 1 again. Here's our new take on it.
I mean, you joke, but I'm open to that. So do you have like a snappy 1-paragraph description of the show for someone who has no idea what they're getting into?
I always like to turn to IMDb in these trying times. In a small town where everyone knows everyone, a peculiar incident starts a chain of events that leads to the disappearance of a child, which begins to tear at the fabric of an otherwise peaceful community. Dark government agencies, seemingly malevolent supernatural forces converge on the town, while a few locals begin to understand that there's more going on than meets the eye.
Yeah, I like that we're not even saying like the main like I retract what I just said. We're not saying anything. That this is the spoiler-free section, so that's about all we're going to say about the plot. But we can still talk a lot, I think, about the greatness of the show.
Yes.
I will freely admit that I may be in a state of infatuation right now, and I will admit, maybe eventually I'll come to realize that this is not the greatest show I've ever seen, but there's no way it's not worth watching. So please, this is an advertisement at this point. I'm just telling you to go watch it, but yeah.
Yeah, I mean, some of the notes I have as well, it's clearly very familiar. I mean, if we go over the once-over, if you've seen the poster, if you've seen even the trailers, it's an homage to, films of the 80s and that type of style, whether it be the music, the look, the tone. But that doesn't always mean it's going to be great. So, I put familiar but genuine. You can feel the love behind what's being made. Then I also did put, or am I being duped? A little bit from all of your favorite things. But I compare it to, more in a Tarantino style where the homages are very loving and it's just short. It really rides that line of just short of being a ripoff, but it does make its own thing. It's very hard to do that and not come off as a ripoff because the obvious comparison would be to the movie Super 8, which came out a couple of years ago from J.J. Abrams. Which does a similar thing that this does. It's a loving homage to 80s and Spielberg. But I feel like that movie was lacking and didn't quite hit the heights that this show did.
One of the notes I wrote, though, after literally 5 minutes, I stopped and checked, had it been 5 minutes, and then I wrote what we wanted Super 8 to be to describe this, because that is, I had that thought as well. And it does feel like you're watching E.T. or Back to the Future or Stand By Me or I Made a Whole List, like all at once. But they do it well, like you said. There's a really fine line because when they're dropping all these references, Lando Calrissian references and stuff, it's like dangerous. It's dangerous waters, but I feel like all the Ernest Clines of the world can pay attention because this is how you do it. And if you haven't read Ernest Cline, God bless you. But if you haven't, I mean, you still know what we're talking about. We're all familiar with the ham-fisted way that big corporations fumble about with existing intellectual property and just drop references, just hoping that something will spring from it. And this is really how you should do it. You weave something new from these old things.
The best breakdown I could think would be it's E.T. by way of Stephen King.
Absolutely.
And so if you're working for the media for Stranger Things, you want to put that on a poster. You have my permission. E.T. by way of Stephen King. Jim Scampoli shows what you know.
I do think they did say a darker E.T. is which very close, and also obvious influences from Stephen King's. But yes, you are the IP owner of that statement. Let's get some money rolling in here. I mean, okay, I'm just scrolling through my notes, which all say like how good it is. But okay, let's talk about some characters. We don't need to list like all the characters, but the main characters are kids, which usually never works.
Yeah.
Right? Yeah. But here it really works. Like, just the comedy of them arguing and acting like real kids is so great. Like, when they're trying to figure something out, arguing back and forth, and one of them just mumbles riddles in the dark. That's one of them references that would have, like, seemed so bad. And if it wasn't done so well, it would be bad, but it just works. And all the actors, like, I can't think of a single actor who's bad in this. Like, I think they all do it excellently, which is amazing since there are so many kids in it.
Yeah, I agree with that. The kids really shine, and it's weird to think that most modern movies can't hit that, because having kids that are good in a movie is almost another throwback to older movies in a weird way. Yeah. I don't know if it's just due to timing, the way everything has to be made so quickly these days. You don't have time to really spend with children who are dumb and let them know how to properly do things. But yeah, the kids are great. You really, I mean, you buy into their relationship and want them to succeed in their adventures.
Yeah, and it's like it's pretty often that kids are put in like incidentals roles where it's like this is the spooky magical kid or whatever or something like that, and they never really act good, maybe because they're not acting like real children, and this is more written from their perspective. We're really with them all the way, E.T. style, so maybe that helps a bit, but at the same time it must be like exhausting because those kids worked really hard on this show. Like it must have been like a lot of hours and stuff, and it still works really good. Maybe that's why it works well, because they had time to work through it, or I don't know.
Yeah, and I mean the adults, or even I guess, do you bunch in like the high school kids in with the younger kids?
Sort of, but I mean it's not as impressive. I think they're pretty good, but I expect them to be.
Yeah, that's true. I agree with that. And I mean it's not really a spoiler to say Winona Ryder's in it. It's just a genius. Because if you're doing a thing that's a throwback and, an homage to the 80s, it's nice to throw a name in like that. And what a perfect get. And even in the beginning, I've heard a lot of complaints about her character. But I feel like she does a great job with what she has to work with. And part of it is just because it seems so different because you have the fun kids going on their adventures. So, you keep coming back to the reality, basically, of what a mother's dealing with everything that's going on in the show.
What are the complaints? Are they like, she's too upset about her missing?
Yeah, exactly. I mean, it's not really a spoiler to say there is a young boy disappears in, the first 15 minutes of the show, and it's her son. But I've seen it in a few reviews where people are like, oh, her character's so grating, and in one note. And it's like, well, what do you expect to happen with a mother whose son is missing and trying to deal with that and potentially thinking that she could be going crazy,
Yes, I mean, what do they want her to have? Like she's sitting at the bar and doing some other? No, she's trying to get her kid back all the time. That's her character, and I mean, maybe I could understand that it gets to be maybe a bit much, but it's not like she's just going crazy. She's making progress and doing things. Like all the characters are really active in pursuing their goals, and they're like putting pieces together in a believable way. Speaking of which, I've said before that I don't give a fuck about mysteries, which is still true, but and horror, which also is kind of true. But the mystery and horror that is in this, there's absolutely nothing wrong with that in my eyes. I love it. I love this type of mystery and or horror. I don't like it when it's like trying to trick you or something. Well, I don't know.
But I was going to ask you about that too, because a lot of this show is kind of slowly developing the mystery of what's going on, and even though you kind of have an idea, and you're right, they're not trying to trick you into thinking. They're not trying to throw a swerve at you, and I think that's a lot of modern movies now. They try to play on your expectations and then just swerve you for no reason. I mean, there's nothing wrong with a good twist, of course, but sometimes it feels like they'll throw it in just because so they could say they tricked you. You always have an idea of what's going on in this show, but it's just kind of uncovering the specifics as it goes along.
Yeah, I do think twists feel a bit overrated sometimes, although sometimes they're underrated because everyone's like, oh, what is this, M. Night Shyamalan? Like, hilarious.
Shamalama ding dong.
But I can understand if the criticism is like things falling into place exactly as you'd expect. Someone said that the show fails to surprise, which is true in a way. I mean, I found myself like saying a lot of lines right before they say the lines. I don't know if you do that when you watch TV, but you're like, ugh. And then if you get it wrong, you look like an idiot. But if you're...
I do that. And sometimes I look like I'm so impressive because I say the line before they say it.
And I was doing that a lot, and sometimes things were happening that you were really expecting to happen, but it's not like it feels like, oh, so predictable. It's more like the right pieces are clicking into place. And I have a hard time putting my finger on what's different about, different types of mystery. But in this, there's, in every episode, there's, like, they make you care. That's the thing in other mysteries where I find myself not caring. And here, they've managed to do that very well. I feel like the more I talk about this show, there's definitely a danger that I will convince myself that the people who are critical are right. People will say that it's derivative and so on, and maybe I'll start saying things like, "Oh, well, it's only doing what others have done before. It's just echoes and references." But if I do that, I'm completely disregarding my enormous enjoyment of the show itself.
Yeah.
And the fact that hundreds, thousands of people are working on projects trying to be this and failing spectacularly.
Yes.
Every reheated concept, every reboot, nostalgia cash-in, like, even if this can be put under that umbrella, they do it so well when 9 times out of 10, that fails completely. So this is better, and there's originality in that, if nothing else.
Well, absolutely, because what a lot of critics will say, or even even just regular peasants will say, whenever they talk about bringing up their new remake, like Ghostbusters, the most recent example, but usually someone will say, instead of just remaking Ghostbusters, just make a new thing like Ghostbusters, and that's a common thing, and that's kind of what they did. Instead of just remaking E.T. or remaking like a John Carpenter movie or whatever, they were like, hey, these are the things we love. Let's make something in that vein. So they're actually doing what a lot of people ask you to do.
Yeah.
So you can't then go and... I mean, I understand that just because they're doing a new thing doesn't completely absolve them of criticism, but you can't then go ahead and shit on it and be like, well, you're just doing this. It's all in the execution and how it comes out.
Yes, and the execution, if we can talk about that, just the look, the feel, the sound of this show, isn't it all great?
Oh, absolutely, absolutely. And I was wondering, I was wondering about that as well. They use, I mean, since it is a throwback and an '80s movie, they use a lot of the synth music, and I guess like John Carpenter style, correct? Didn't he make a lot of that, like synth style, like old scores?
I'm not sure.
Well, he did, and a lot of people did. But then I started wondering, is it just that music's great for this type of thing, or is it only great because that's what they used then? What's first, the chicken or the egg?
That's an interesting question. I feel like it... well, if you put it in like something that takes place today, it's probably not going to work as well.
Yeah, very true.
Or maybe it will, but it'll be like distracting. Here it fits in so well, and that certainly helps with making it feel great. But yeah, a lot of that synth stuff felt like I feel like it didn't really sound like this. When I was imagining like E.T., for example, it's more like cinematic score, and this didn't have much of that at all, right?
Yeah, not a lot of cinematic score. I guess more the horror movies of the 80s. It's like that type of style.
Yeah, and I'm not as well versed in that.
And then for the like just the look, because my initial, I read a couple headlines before the show premiered, trying to stay away from spoilers, but just seeing what the general vibe was. And a couple reviews I had read, like the first paragraph before they got into details, and they mentioned, the Duffer Brothers or the directors, they go for a style from Spielberg, the 80s, whatever, and then they go out of their way to say they're not as good as them, but like it's great for them to try. But when I watched it, I don't know. I think it's just as good, and it shows a real promise. I'm really looking forward to what the Duffer Brothers bring out, because I feel like it's all there in the screen. I wouldn't take anything away from them, even though, yes, they're doing a throwback style. That'd be like saying, well, Tarantino's doing a throwback style, but he's not really as skillful. He's just, taking from other things.
Yeah, I mean, I didn't get that feeling at all that it was like a weak copy because it isn't. But yeah, you're right. The Duffer Brothers they're going to be on Gravy Street now, right? I mean, they're going to be the hot new thing. They'll be rebooting Back to the Futures and Goonies and E.T.'s in no time. One brother is going to be doing Gremlins, like I think maybe Gremlins with Kate McKinnon as all the Gremlins, and the other Duffer Brothers is going to be doing Back to the Future with Melissa McCarthy as Doc Brown, and then another young talent will have been crashed and crumbled and squashed into the great studio system we all live by and worship. Isn't that what's going to happen? What do you think?
It seems like, yes. It seems like at this very moment, the Star Wars franchise, the DC movies, and the Marvel movies are all trying to get them for whatever their next property is going to be.
Yep.
Although I'd love to see a Star Wars movie from the Duffer Brothers.
Yeah, but I
Star
feel
Wars
like
horror film.
Well, isn't it scary? Isn't it like, doesn't this happen a lot that someone makes something great and then they get picked up and then they think the thing they make after that is not great?
It is scary. Yes.
Because they get like too much money or whatever happens and too many restrictions, or I'm not really sure, because they have they have pretty, just coming from quote unquote nowhere, you have pretty big restrictions on not being able to do anything. It's clear they couldn't do anything in Stranger Things. So if they get all the money, but then also more restrictions, it's like, no, Wonder Woman has to do this, so make her do that. And they're like, oh, okay, I guess I'm the director.
Yeah, it's a very strange thing because, see what I did there? And I mean, obviously, this is all just from hearing on the outside. I don't know what it's like in the big studio system, but you always hear about, this young filmmaker makes this breakthrough indie film, and then they pick them up for a franchise, except then they're like, well, no, don't do that. Yeah. Just do what we say. Don't. We did pick you up based on your vision and your talent, but don't have any opinions, and we'll tell you what to do.
Yeah. And that certainly seems like a possibility.
Or they could end up like Josh Trank, who did the Chronicle movie, and then made a terrible Fantastic Four, and then was fired from Star Wars.
Yes, that is the thing we have to fear. But I feel like it's we can at least be hopeful still that I'm hoping for. We haven't. You're more in. You know more about this stuff than me. Has there been any buzz on a season 2 of Stranger Things yet?
I did read before the show started. I was looking into what they thought the show would be, and what I had read is they said that they had planned it just for the one season, but had if they get asked back, they would love to do more than one. They would love to continue it, but they tried to set it up where they could just kind of have it be the one and done. Sorry, just real quick. It is something I would maybe, even as much as I loved it, I would maybe prefer it to be something along the lines of Fargo, of more of an anthology thing. I wouldn't be mad if they kept with the same cast, but it does feel like to keep that magic going, you would almost want to do different people or an anthology type show.
Yeah, I was thinking the same thing, and like you said, Fargo or True Detective, but then we have the danger of doing a True Detective season 2 as well. So all sorts of dangerous stuff there. But I think that's clever the way they did it. Like, I think it's always the best way to do the thing you want to do while you have the opportunity to do it. Don't build towards, we don't know if we're going to get a second season, but cliffhanger. Like, it's great that it totally works as its own thing either way, but I would be happy to hear that they're going to make more. And I skimmed through some interview or something where it was clear that they weren't against the idea anyway, so that's good.
Yeah, very good. I guess it's about that time. We might as well get into the spoilers, unless you have anything else.
No, I'll just say that during certain episodes, I had to pause it because of how good I thought it was. So usually I might pause if it's like too awkward or something like that. Like, but in this, I actually did pause it to just enjoy it for longer. So just go ahead and watch it and then come back for the discussion. Don't let us fumble through the plot in the spoiler section, and yeah, go watch it.
And one other thing before the spoilers. Gotta give big ups to Netflix. Such a cool thing to do, and I mean, not like everything not every original thing they do is great. But it's nice that they have a wide net and they're open to weird projects and trying different things and throwing some money behind it just to feed us some content. So I very cool, I would say.
Do you think Netflix has like a big robot brain that's just analyzing what everyone's watching? And it's like, oh, the same people who like E.T. also like this movie and that. And then it just puts, and then someone, like maybe they get thousands of pitches, but they're like, oh, this pitch. It puts together those things. Like, I feel like they have more comprehensive viewing data than any channel that has ever existed. So they're sort of able to program a show that will hack all our brains. Maybe that's connecting it back to.
I wouldn't
cheated.
doubt it, because that data's got to be invaluable. They know what we're watching and what we're going to watch next and what we're going to sit and watch for hours. Something that we're not going to leave for a little while. Like, oh, this really hit with these people. They sat and watched it in a day.
Yeah. So that's they got it right this time. So I'm not mad at the computer this time.
Yeah.
We'll see about next time. But let's head into spoiler talk.
Spoilers.
Spoilers. Perfect.
Right.
So to keep it sort of structured, since we're just doing 1 to 4, I'm going to sort of summarize what happens in the episodes for us to then talk about. So the first episode or chapter is chapter 1, The Vanishing of Will Byers. It starts with the kids playing D&D, and then on the bike trip home, Will vanishes into thin air. Elle, the kid, a strange kid, appears at a restaurant, and the owner calls the authorities and gets promptly killed. Elle then runs away and meets the other kids in the woods. That's sort of the kid plot line in episode 1.
And the D&D thing, it's such a common trope these days. I mean, between Community and just the standard nerd, like, here's the nerds playing D&D. And I mean, it's also kind of throwback in E.T., they're playing D&D.
Yes.
And it's hard not to roll your eyes at that. But this show, again, what we were saying in the non-spoilers, this show takes those things that you think you're going to roll your eyes at, but it nails it. And the way it tells you about the kids and about their relationship and and then continuing that thread with how they react to things in the real world and play it with their D&D characters. It's well done.
Yeah, they hit you with the D&D and then the bikes immediately afterwards, and it's hard not to think of E.T. When they do that. So with the how did you feel about the restaurant guy who got killed immediately?
Yeah, I mean, something's going down. I was still kind of figuring out what, I was doing the thing. I don't know if you do this. Well, I guess you don't like mysteries. Sometimes I overthink shit and trying to figure it out. I try not to do that because sometimes it ruins what you're watching.
Sure.
And I'm sitting there trying to overthink the L character and how it's how does this tie in? What's going on with the missing boy? Is she the missing boy?
Right.
It come back from another dimension? Did she eat the boy? Stupid things like that. And you're just waiting. I was still in the back of my head though. You're just waiting for the shoe to drop. Either this guy's going to be a weird creep or someone's going to come in and kill him.
Yeah, I felt like that too. Like someone was going to come in and kill him, but at the same time, his death affected me sort of, and I just wrote down that's how you make a death count in short time, because they didn't take any time to do it. They just present him as sort of gruff and he seems kind of mean, and then you reveal that he has a heart of gold, and then pop, he's dead. Oh
yeah, you're right. No, they had a lot of nice moments too with the initial turn and then him kind of taking care of her. And then they had nice touches, like when the fake social services worker shows up, and he's like, "Okay, hey, I didn't have time to tell her, just give me a minute. Like she's a little scared. You know, he's just being such a super nice dude. You just want him to adopt her and take her away and raise her as his own.
Yeah. And they spend no time on it, but it's so efficient in setting up like that this is dangerous for real, and so on. So at the same time, what else is going on?
Well, one other note I had with the kids is they're talking about X-Men 134, and that is the first appearance of the Dark Phoenix. I had to look it up. I didn't know that offhand.
Thank God.
I was like, okay, that must be something. And I mean, the Dark Phoenix is, the bad Jean Grey, which, I mean, I guess kind of ties in. There could be some hope of mind, of telekinesis and mind powers. So sure. I think a decent little gem to throw in there.
Yeah. So the only scene where I felt like maybe it was like too much referencey or like too similar to other things was like when they introduced the two bullies, and they sort of like pick on them and call them names like, do the truffle shuffle but another thing because it's not the Goonies.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, well, but that was just a short moment where I was like, and then I was back on board, and I wrote down after episode 1, I'm so on board I cannot even describe it, is what I wrote.
Yeah.
So yes. And we also meet, the cop guy who seems like a bad cop guy, but we see he's got some moves, some cop chops, and we kind of like him, and we meet the parents and so on. Didn't really make any other notes on the plot, because that's basically it for episode 1.
Yeah, the only other note I had was I don't trust Steve Harrington, who was he's the cool guy who likes the nerd girl. That old gag where the nerd girl's starting to get a little popular, and who's this popular boy that's suddenly interested, and is he only interested in what all boys are interested in?
Of course. I mean, maybe it wasn't in episode 1, but he did turn out to be surprisingly likable, in my opinion. Do you want him to be stoned to death?
We'll see, because I think I have notes throughout each episode on where I'm at with Steve Harrington.
So chapter 2 is The Weirdo on Maple Street, where I've now split the plot lines into kids, teens, and adults.
Okay.
Starting with kids, Will takes in Elle. Elle then recognize... Oh, no. Sorry. Am I messing this up? Mike? These kids, I'm not great with names. So Mike is the main kid, right? Will's the missing kid? I think so.
Yeah. Will's the missing kid. Mike's the main kid.
Right. So Mike takes in Elle. Elle recognizes Will's picture. So Lucas and Dustin, who are the other two kids, they want to tell Will's parents, but Elle uses her mind to close the door, revealing her powers and saying, no, that's not safe. Let's not do that.
And L is short for 11, which, what does that mean? Where could we go from there?
Which, Elle in general we've seen, maybe it's because I watched Dark Angel, but it seems like, yeah, of course, super soldier kid person with powers or whatever.
Yeah.
Maybe that's become a more standard thing even since the 80s, because if a kid showed up like with superpowers like that, we would like, oh, where's the nearest laboratory? Would be our first thought, right?
Yeah, for sure. And I do say that the girl that plays Elle, she's great, because it's a performance that doesn't have a lot of, it's just a lot of looking scared and looking, I don't know, you just being nervous and being scared. And I feel like that's not always the easiest for a kid to pull off without it being kind of corny and hokey. But I think it helps. She with like her expressions in her eyes tell a lot. And also kind of you still get the sense of that, the power beneath all that. You know what I mean?
Her job is to look intently at things while we do special effects, and that is not easy to get right. But with her and Mike, they have moments like when he's just like, oh, maybe we can call you L, short for 11. Yeah. And my heart sort of breaks a little. And when they bring up things like, she's like, promise? And he says, it means something you can never break, ever. I'm like, that's going to come back.
Yeah.
That's one of those things that's so obviously like setting something up, but I don't mind. I just feel like, oh my God. Oh, that's how I feel.
And then, because I put, very ET stuff, really nailing the bonding and the becoming friends. You're buying into they just met this girl like an hour ago and she's just their best friend. But it works. The way they do it, it works, and kind of showing the the discovery of the powers, and what she can do.
And it works because they're little kids. It wouldn't work if you're teenagers and like found some weirdo in the forest. It wouldn't be the same. But it has like this mystical air that can happen in children's books that can't happen in young adult books when you level up the age a bit. Like there's just a different sense of importance to things, and the fact that they're sort of hunting something that's super real and super important. I don't know. It's funny that they, as you said, like bring up their Dungeons and Dragons references, but they're right and everyone else is wrong.
Yes, yes, and especially with young kids, you buy into it a little bit more of this. It's not quite a mistrust of adults, but just knowing when crazy things are happening with little kids. You understand why they wouldn't go tell their parents, because who's going to believe a kid who's saying like this? No, she has powers. She can move things with her mind. It's like, yeah, all right, Mike, go back to your D&D game or whatever.
Yes, exactly.
And one thing on Dustin's the kid with the teeth missing. Like, what a cute kid. But all I could picture is that as a grown-up, he's going to be the biggest dirtbag.
Certainly possible.
His look, and especially like the look they give him with like the trucker hat and like the jacket and stuff, it looks adorable on a young kid. But you just picture him, 15 years from now, but he's got kind of a mustache and he's got the same look and the long like greasy hair, and you're like, ugh, enough of that guy.
Well, I, for one, think that we're going to see him in one of those, 15 years later, where is he now? Yeah. And he's going to be a hunk.
Yeah.
He's not going to be the methed out Home Alone kid. He's going to be a great-looking guy. He's going to lose the baby fat, get those teeth in. Oh, my God. He's going to be Captain America when they reboot it again.
Oh, I can't wait.
Oh, yeah. So at the same time, we have the teens. Nancy, who's the main kid, Mike's sister, goes to this party with her kind of boyfriend and his friends and her friend Barbara. At the same time, Will's brother, Jonathan, I think, is out there searching, and he hears noises, so he goes and takes some pictures of them. And in the end, Barbara disappears downstairs, as it were, while Nancy disappears upstairs. So, yeah. Yeah,
I have. And one thing, I don't know if this is just me filling in gaps because I want to like the show, or if it's kind of there. Because at first I'm like, oh, party, that's weird. But then it made sense to me in like, say you live in a small town and you're in high school and a tragedy hits. When you're younger, especially, you're invincible. You're gonna live forever. So when real life things like that happen, I think it is common for kids to weirdly act out and just be like, well, not us. We're invincible. We're gonna drink and have sex because that's what we do. And we ain't afraid of no monsters.
So you're sort of looking at it through horror movie glasses.
In a way, yes. But the one thing that was really weird, and I mean it's set up for something that pays off later, but when the Creeper brothers just taking pics, it's like, why are you taking pics right now, bro?
That's true, but maybe I have a bit of Creeper in my heart as well, but I did not find that strange at all.
Even when he's taking pictures of like people up in a window and stuff.
Yeah, that was weird. That was pretty weird. I mean, I think that was weird. But at the same time, I understand. But not to the point where I've done that, of course. I would never, okay. But I understand it.
And I did make a note. Steve Harrington is still up to no good.
Yeah, he is. Well, he's showing it now. Yeah. He's not up to he's officially up to no good. At the same time, the adults, Will's mom, is getting weird phone calls with lightning punctuation, and something is also coming through the wall by the end of this episode, so she runs away, obviously, but then she realizes, oh, Will is in there, and she goes back in to face whatever it is. And this is where I'm like, well, I can't, like, the people who dislike her, she is fighting, like, in all the time. She's doing things actively to get Will back, and yeah, she seems crazy while doing it, but Yeah, so I enjoyed that.
No, I thought those scenes were very effective, and I thought it was they had some legit creepiness with the the should I stay or should I go and the lights and because she has at this point does she already have no, it's not the Christmas lights yet, it's just the house lights, right? And she can kind of follow the path, and then in Will's room the radio's coming on and all these creepy things are happening. And you're right, that's such a great moment that if you're criticizing the character, it's a great moment where she's doing what you would do in that situation, run away. But no, that's her son. Her son's in there somewhere. Something's going on. She can't leave no matter what. Her own survival instincts be damned.
Yes. And at the same time, we're following Chief Hopper, who finds clues that eventually leads him to go visit the lab. I think that's it for episode 2.
And I think his stuff is good there too, because he going back to the cook that was murdered when they're trying to find Elle. They make it look like a suicide, and he's affected by that because he knows the town, and then he starts thinking he's cursed because dealing with a missing kid and now a suicide, and he's thinking about his dead daughter. I think all that stuff's good. It's all playing into what's going on. It works really well.
Yeah, they don't really. I forgot that he said he was friends with the guy who allegedly committed suicide. They did sort of sweep him under the rug a bit. There was never a scene of his wife being like, "Where's my? He would never do that," or anything like that. But yeah, whatever. So episode 3 or chapter 3 is Holly Jolly. Starting out with. Starting with the kids, we can say that they are searching for Will, but Elle takes them to Will's house instead.
And the beginning of this episode doesn't this start out with the
with Barbara getting eaten in the shadow world? It starts with that.
Okay, I'm sorry, I didn't mean to jump ahead.
No, absolutely, I wasn't sure what to start with, but yeah, just to summarize the kids real quick, they go to Will's house. There's various flashbacks, and eventually a body is discovered. That's like the main plot of this episode, I think.
Yeah, and this is this when they leave? Don't they leave Elle? Like, isn't she kind of roaming around the house by herself in this one? Or
I think so.
Yeah, because again, I just kind of made a note, like more ET stuff with Elle, because it just always reminds me, when ET's drinking beer and watching TV when everyone's away.
Yeah. But as you said, Barbara gets taken into the shadow world, and so she's obviously not there the next day when Nancy wakes up, and she's worried. And it's your first glimpse into and basically the biggest clue, and it's basically short of spelling it out. It's like, okay, there's a dimension that's on top of or beneath ours. And she was pulled in there because she's in the pool, except it's in a creepy version of the pool, and you can they play fast and loose with the rules a little bit because they almost make it seem like sometimes you can hear the person like from the other dimension. That's true.
Maybe that's due to just there's rips in fabric going on and things that are happening.
Yeah, they never really show from the shadow world how the light trick works, But obviously, if Will is turning off and on the lights, he must be hearing that from our world, and then has some impact over the electricity. And this must be the first place where we see the shadow world of as you say, the pool, and everything's the same and so on.
Yeah.
So Nancy's worried, and she goes back to the house and sees something weird.
Well, I put Nancy's now a slut. I put in my notes as well.
Okay.
Because it's boning. The boning of Steve Harrington is confirmed. Nancy's now a slut. Nerd Barb, and the monster eats the nerd. I put ?
Okay, so wait, Nancy is a slut. Is that like your judgment call?
Yeah, no, it's just I mean, she's clearly not a slut, but it's in these like horror movie or
that means she
tropes.
Should die, right?
Yeah, not necessarily she should die, but here she is doing what she says she's not going to do. Confirmed.
Okay. She does that. That's true. And then we also have in the teen storyline, Jonathan is developing his photos and is discovered. So Steve and Co. destroy his camera. And
is that in this? Yeah, okay. That's when I put Steve Harrington confirmed bad. Because not only did he bang Nancy, but he also broke the camera.
Yeah, but to be fair, if he'd done that with no motivation, I would have agreed with your confirmation.
He did see his because this confirms the creeper aspect. Because taking pictures of the party is one thing, but now you see there. I don't think they showed it in the previous episode that he was also taking pictures of her with her shirt off in the window.
Yeah, that doesn't look good, Jonathan. Don't do that.
And I also made a note that this might be jumping around more than what you brought up yet, but Winona Ryder buys Christmas lights out of season. Although then I found out I guess it is in season.
Oh yeah, it is November, I guess. But yeah, as you said, she stocks up on Christmas lights and draws her alphabet to communicate with Will. And yeah, at the same time, we see Chief Hopper visit the lab. He realizes they're hiding something because they're fucking around with the camera tapes and so on. I think that's about. Oh yeah, I mean the main bit. I said it first, but they find a body, and there's a big fight about that, obviously, because everyone's upset. They found a body. They found Will's body, so it's over, right?
Oh yes, yeah. This episode ends with them finding the body, right, in the lake or the reservoir or whatever.
That's right.
Oh, and I did think that scene with Winona Ryder's Ouija board, with basically the letters on the wall and the Christmas lights, and then what should I do? Run. I thought that was I really liked that moment.
Yeah, I enjoyed that as well. Although that was one of those things where I guessed the line before the line.
Yeah,
but,
for sure.
But of course you are. It's still good and it still works. Wait, this is chapter 4, right? We just did chapter 4? No,
that was chapter 3.
Chapter 4, the body. Where I got confused because we were talking about the body, and chapter 4 is called the body.
Yes, yeah, because chapter 3 ends with them finding the body, then it picks up, right there.
So obviously the kids are upset, but Elle proves that Will is alive by communicating through the radio. So all the kids form these theories. This is when they start talking about the veil of shadows and this darkness dimension and being completely right ahead of everyone else. It's funny how all the different people investigating this arrive eventually at the same conclusion, but the kids are so ahead of everyone else. It's ridiculous.
Oh, yeah.
Obviously, they cheat using L, but still. They decide to use the stronger radio in the school, but get trapped into going to an assembly after they dress up L as a girl. And she makes a bully pee himself, and then the radio lets them hear Will, but then the radio explodes.
Yes, yeah, and I made a note again with the ET because, they're giving her the old ET makeover in a way. Although ET's makeover was done by Gertie, but still it counts. And they also put ET in a Halloween costume, so it's a twofer for you. And
they're phoning home, kind of.
And yes, and then this shows us the sludge Stargate. Then we see hints of I call it the sludge Stargate.
Yeah, we may have. I think we've seen it before, but Hopper eventually he confronts the state trooper who found the body, and then goes to the morgue and discovers it's a fake, and then he breaks into the lab. Oh no, I'm sorry, he doesn't see the sludge portal, but he breaks into the lab.
We see it because the lab sends like a guinea pig into.
That's right.
They have a guy who he's wearing
the classic scene.
Yeah, and the guy's wearing the classic bad guy scientist, space suit, and with the old he's got something wrapped around his waist so they could pull him back apparently. And
that always works, right?
Yeah, it always works. And he goes into the sludge Stargate, and I just put dead guinea pigs in through the sludge Stargate. And there was a Sweden reference in this episode. Shit, I didn't make a note of the reference though. Do you remember the Sweden reference?
They said she was from Sweden. When they asked where she was from.
So you enjoyed that, huh? You're from Sweden.
Oh yeah, I was ecstatic. For new listeners, I'm from Sweden also.
Just like Elle.
Yeah. Well, earlier she is calling the weird scientist guy Papa, which I know is like if you're on the Little House on the Prairie, you can go, Papa, you must come, the sheep are exploding or something. But that's literally the word for dad in Swedish. So I thought some connection there, maybe she...
Oh, interesting.
But yeah, we'll get into that in the next episode. Maybe she was Swedish all along.
Now, you brought up the sheriff going at the fake body, right?
Mm-hmm.
Now, I thought that was kind of a weird leap of faith. Like, this sheriff is really taking a leap of faith, in my opinion, where he decides to, because, they fish the body out of the water at the end of the last episode. They bring it to the morgue in this episode, and Winona Ryder's still not convinced that's her son. They are being shady about it, and we, the viewers, know there's something going on. Yeah. But then for the sheriff to take the body out and then take out his knife, it's kind of like, I guess you almost do see it on his face where it's like, well, if I'm wrong, I'm fucked. And he just stabs the body. Luckily for him, it's full of stuffing from like a stuffed animal for some reason.
Yeah. Well, I felt like I would hope that when he poked the body, he felt, wait, this isn't body material, also known as skin. That's what I assumed. Okay. But at the same time, he wouldn't be flinching as bad when he was cutting it open. It's hard to keep track of like all the little pieces that led him to that. Yeah. I can't quite remember everything that was building up to that moment, but there was definitely shady shit going on, but I don't know. Maybe it's the mother who's so convinced that that's not her son that makes him go, well, I gotta check how deep the conspiracy goes. And if there's blood and guts, I'm calling it a day.
Okay, was this the episode... I hope I hope I'm not spoiling anything. Was this the episode where Hooper, the sheriff, was at the bar?
And exactly.
So he got some details because he was at the bar. Yeah, doing his sleuthing.
Oh yeah, they wouldn't let the usual guy do the autopsy. They got state people in, and there was a state cop that found him for some reason. So he goes to the bar and tricks the state cop, and then beats him up for information.
Yes, yeah. So he does know something's going on, and he just decides to beat him up. Yeah, what a kick-ass cop.
Oh, it's so great. He's doing his jobs excellently. Promote him immediately, please.
I did make a note that the Nancy... Did you cover the Nancy storyline yet?
I think so.
I did make a note that it felt dragging. This is the episode where that storyline felt a little dragging to me.
Oh yeah,
it was kind of like, Nancy and the brother. Okay, let's get through this already.
Yeah, I didn't write anything on them in this episode, so I don't know what they did. I don't know. What did they do?
I think that's when they started. They started kind of looking at the pictures,
right?
Because remember, she saw the ripped up picture, and she saw that there was something in one of the pictures, which ended up being our monster here.
That's right, but they don't start teaming up properly until next episode, so I can't...
spoilers. Yeah, we won't get into the details on that. Yeah. I did make a note that in her class, the teacher was going over Hearts of Darkness, which ended up being, which was Apocalypse Now was based on. So take from that what you will.
So, do we have any final thoughts, or shall we cut this off? We're just slicing it off here, and we're going to come back to you with the last 4 episodes in case.
Yeah. Well, the one other thing, this is also the episode I believe where Winona Ryder kind of rips the wall, and she can see Will through basically the blood and guts of the wall.
Yeah.
I like that. I like those visuals and the creepiness with that, and kind of the buildup of the monster side of things. So I think that was the only other real detail from this episode.
Each episode we do get a bit deeper into the eldritch horror stuff, and it feels like a deliberate and well-paced build-up in my mind, the way we're getting bits and pieces more each time.
Yep.
So, we're going to finish up this episode and check your podcast feed or reader for the extra spoiler section where we talk about everything else from Stranger Things. If you have any opinions on Stranger Things, you can send it to showswhatyouknowshow@gmail.com, or you can just go ahead and give us a review on iTunes or whatever thing you use.
Yes, please. Subscribe to the Shows What You Know and review us on iTunes or whatever thing you use.
Exactly, yes.